Thank you for joining Cancer Support Community Atlanta for this program. Please visit our website, cscatlanta.org, for a complete list of live and recorded events. We invite you to sign up for our newsletter to stay connected to all future programs.
Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm glad you're here to join me today. So as Lauren said, we're going to be talking about NextOvers. Has anybody ever heard of this concept of NextOvers? Yeah, I didn't make it up, but I love the idea. Some producer at Epicurious made it up. But we're going to be making just basic standard roast chicken, simple as it can get. And then talking about if you've roasted that chicken, you can eat several meals off of that one chicken besides just eating the actual chicken, right? Or just eating roast chicken as a meal. You can, then you got some leftover breast meat or thigh, whatever meat you got left over, you can pull it and make chicken salad. You've got that chicken carcass that can be made into stock. Now you've got stock in your freezer or in your fridge to sip on or to make soup. So we're gonna do all of those things. I am going to be jumping around back and forth because the timing of this is probably different than the way I would try to pull it off in my kitchen, right? When we're cooking at home, we're not like, I mean, sometimes we're trying to get things done in an hour. So what I'm going to do first is I did go ahead and give myself a head start and throw a chicken in the oven earlier to make sure that we had something to eat at the end of this. But we're going to start with spatchcocking a chicken. Does anybody know that term? Yes, Jeff does, you do. What does spatchcocking a chicken mean? It's flatten it, right? So I'm going to cut the backbone out of it so that I can flatten it. Okay, well, there's a couple of different ways you can do it, and I will say that this is just to show you this. If this, you get in there and you try to do it and you're like, this is not working for me, you don't have to do it. But we'll talk in just a minute about the reason we would do that. So I'm going to spatchcock the chicken. We're going to get that in the oven. Then I'm going to switch over to pulling some meat off of a rotisserie chicken and talking about that, because here's the thing. If roasting a chicken on your own is not available to you this week and buying a rotisserie chicken is, I say go for it, right? Do what you got to do. So we're going to pull the meat off of a rotisserie chicken for some chicken salad. We're going to use the carcass from that to make chicken stock. And then I'm going to finish up by, we're going to get some vegetables in the oven for roasting. So today we're going to roast kale, cauliflower, and tomatoes. I chose all of those in particular because those are roasted vegetables that behave nicely when they're left over and reheated, right? Some stuff, when you cook it twice, gets a little not as perfect or not as good. But those really lend themselves to doing big batches of. So that's why I chose those. So we'll get the vegetables in the oven, and then we'll circle back to our chicken salad, pulling our meat, getting our chicken stock going, making the chicken salad. It's just going to be moving back and forth. So I'll sort of try to cue you when I'm going from one thing to the other. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is this is just a plain old roaster chicken. Of course, many whole raw chickens come with this fun little package on the inside. And so in there is typically heart, gizzard, kidneys. There are things that you can do with them if you want to do with them. My dad feeds them to his dog, which is a fine thing as well. There's also the neck in there, and I do like to save that because we're making stock. So I'm going to pull that little bit out of there. And put it in my pot that's going to be for stock. And then we're going to chuck the rest of it today because I don't have a purpose for it today. But if you are into using it all, use it all. Okay. All right, so spatchcocking a chicken. Why would we want to do this? Well, have you ever had the experience where to get your chicken all the way roasted, your breast meat's starting to dry out and your dark thigh meat and leg meat is just now getting where it needs to be. So it's a way to flatten the chicken so that things cook more evenly. It also cooks faster. So we're going to flip it over because what we're going to do is pull out the backbone. So what I meant to do today was bring my kitchen shears so that I could just cut through. But because I spatchcocked the chicken last night in the oven, those kitchen shears are in my dishwasher right now. So thankfully I did sharpen my knife. So we're just gonna get in here and cut along the backbone as I go. I don't want to cut all the way through to the breast, but there we go. That worked pretty well. And then I'm going to turn it around because I'm right-handed and I want to be able to go down this other side. There we go. It's a little crunch to get through these bones. Oh, for sure. Yes. So I'm going to get that. Yeah, out of the way. Okay, so now we've just removed the backbone, right? So we're going to flip it over. I'm going to put it on the pan I was going to roast it on. No, I'm not, because I can't reach it. And we're going to give it a push, because we want to basically flatten out this breast a little bit more and push it down so it's all nice and flat. So there it is. That's it. That was spatchcocking a chicken. Easy peasy, all done. So the other thing I'm going to do when I stick this on here, yeah, it's not the breast side. Yeah, so, you got your chicken breast on one side, so you're cutting out the backbone is what we did. And then we're going to save that backbone to put in our stock. Now, sometimes the wings, I like to try to stick them under there so that, because the tips tend to burn, but as you'll see in the chicken that's about to come out of the oven, they popped back out sometimes, and sometimes they do that, and that is okay. And they're not wanting to behave today. Okay, so people tend to get really intensely, particular about crispy chicken skin is delicious. We like that. To make it crispy, you want to get the skin as dry as you can. So you can take a paper towel and dry it off, and that'll do a pretty good job. Another option that I've seen recommended a lot and works well is to salt it in advance and leave it in your refrigerator uncovered, and that circulating air in your refrigerator will dry it out. I don't know about you guys, but I never have that much real estate in my refrigerator that I could put a sheet pan of chicken in there uncovered and have room. So for those of you who do, I would recommend that. For the rest of us, I'm just gonna take a paper towel and call it good enough. Okay, this is super simple. This is the other thing about when you're salting something is go high, right? The higher you go when you're salting it, the more evenly distributed. If you're salting down here, you're gonna get patches of salt all in one spot. So we're just gonna go high. And get in there, and I'm going to flip it over and go on the other side too. I'm going to try to one-hand it. This is my clean hand. This is my dirty hand. We'll get this side salted as well. If you're super concerned about your sodium intake, could you measure the salt? Yes, you sure could. All right, those wings are just not playing. I feel like maybe some chickens have looser shoulders. There we go. Right, they got real loosened up. All right, this should be the last time that I have to wash my hands for a minute so many times, but of course, when you're playing with chicken, wash your hands early, wash your hands often, and do it again and again and again. Right. Now, through the magic of television, in just minutes, we're going to pull out an already roasted chicken. Look at that. And we're going to put this one in. I did, well, okay, so this is my first time using this oven. And so as I was planning for this today, I thought, how does this oven behave? My oven at home is pokey and slow. And I thought, I got to make sure I have enough time to get this all figured out. Oh, good question. The temperature's on 450. And yeah, either way. The convection's just going to circulate the air faster and tend to speed it up. Okay, so the other thing that I find super helpful when you're cooking chicken is a digital instant read thermometer. This is kind of a fancy, expensive one. You don't need a fancy, expensive one. But what we're looking for is 160. 165 is the safe temperature, yep, for chicken. Dark meat can handle a little bit higher. It's not going to dry out as fast, but your breast meat, which is just, there's more of it, it's going to take longer to cook. 165. All right, so we've got one chicken going in the oven. We got one chicken hanging out here. I wasn't actually sure if the one that just went in the oven was going to make it through on time, so we'll see what happens. All right, so we also have over here a rotisserie chicken, because if going out and buying a chicken is, like I said, feels like an extra step, and then you got dishes to wash and all of that, you don't have the time or energy, don't worry about it. Buy a rotisserie chicken. Sometimes, you know, apparently Costco is the place to get them in terms of affordability, but the point I was going to make is that, you know, in general, buying a convenience product is going to cost a little bit more money, and buying the raw is going to save you some money, and that is, in general, holds true. Unless you shop at Costco, apparently. Here's another thing I want to mention, is trussing a chicken. So if you're going to not spatchcock it, if you're going to cook it whole, you'll usually see on a rotisserie chicken this little twine on here. And they somehow have fancy elastic ones. Kitchen twine works fine. But essentially what they're trying to do is keep everything all together so that the legs aren't splayed open and cooking, and then everything's going to cook more. It's, you know, a way to cook it more evenly as well. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to also talk through just how to break down a chicken, because this was a thing that I didn't learn until graduate school. It was like, how do you cut it? And this works for carving a turkey on Thanksgiving as well, by the way. But there's, you know, some like main pieces and parts that make it a little bit easier. Now, with a rotisserie chicken, it's going to be all floppy and loose and easy peasy. But if for some reason you were taking a raw chicken, it's going to work the same way, and you wanted to break it down into its various pieces. Because, again, if you're trying to save money, buying a whole chicken is cheaper than buying all of the pieces on a pound-per-pound basis. So first thing I like to do, some people like to do wings first, some people like to do legs first, doesn't really matter. In general, with a rotisserie chicken, they're just gonna break right off. But if you were cutting, you first wanna kind of bend them backwards, and then you can cut really easily through there. So that's those guys, and let's go ahead and boom. I'm going to save these bones because this is also going to go in our stock. We're not going to be too precious about the skin. You know what? That's up to you, right? Like if you put it in your stock, it's gonna, if you want it in your stock, that's fine. It's just gonna separate, right? And have all that fat in there. If you just wanna eat it, knock yourself out because it's delicious. If you're concerned about the saturated fat in it, then don't. But I am gonna separate it off today just because it makes your stock. And again, this is just, you barely have to cut it here. But there's sort of like, when the skin's still intact, you can sort of see that like thigh, cut through that. And then there's the joint that's sort of right in here. And again, the more you sort of pull it open, you can get your knife right into that joint and cut it apart. So now you've got, and same thing here, there's a little line right there. It's almost like the folds in the skin sort of draw a line for you. So then you've got your all right, so then from here, you've got this one, we've got the backbone still intact. We've got all this breastbone right here. So this to me is the hardest cut. It takes the most effort, but typically you're gonna sort of cut this down and kind of pull this apart. Again, rotisserie chicken, that backbone's just going to come right out. But a whole chicken, you would have to sort of break it and really like use a sharp knife, cut it down. So we're going to pull the meat off of this too. We're saving everything. We're using everything for the most part. Chicken skin notwithstanding. All right, so then from here, splitting the breast is going to be the next thing. So I like to do it because this creates a flat surface right here. If it's like this, it's like teetering on the edge. So I create the flat surface and then just cut right through to split that breast. All right, so now we have all of this meat for chicken salad or for eating or for putting back in your chicken soup later if you want to make chicken soup or your chicken and dumplings or your rice bowl, your whatever you want it for. I'm working kind of fast, but I'm also going to try not to give anybody bones in their chicken salad. That would be embarrassing, wouldn't it?
I was just telling Chrissy that those, though I don't work for Costco, the rotisserie chickens are so good, and even when I go for something totally different, I always buy one, shred it up, and put it in my freezer for.
Oh, for a rainy day, yeah, for like, yeah.
$4.99. It was crazy. Yeah, or $5. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and I get some. It gets all in your fingernails and all greasy. So I put on some gloves, which will apply for you next time. And
Thank you. I had them, and I was like, oh, right, we're doing this for chicken salad, and I completely forgot.
it just makes it so much
It does.
easier and faster when it's already there in your freezer. Shred it up.
Right. So that's, sort of thinking ahead about when you've got, good days or easier days. When you've got the energy to do some meal planning and pay it forward. This week, even, I'm moving this weekend, so we're trying to eat up everything in the freezer, everything in the refrigerator, and I didn't go to the grocery store this week and didn't really meal plan this week because I'm like, we're just going to see what we got. We're gonna dive deep. And when you can find those treasures in there, right, in your freezer, that you're like, look what I did. I paid it forward. We love that. The other thing is, if you got just odds and ends of scraps of vegetables when you're chopping and prepping vegetables, I'm gonna show you in just a minute for stock how to, we're just gonna use fresh celery and carrots that we have, but if, you get into saving your ends of your onions and your odds and ends of everything and throwing it in a bag in your freezer, then you've got lots of stuff that you can use to make stock, which is so, so easy, you guys. And, I'm not above buying chicken stock or better than bouillon or tones or whatever, right? Because I don't always have homemade chicken stock in my freezer. But when I do, it's such a treat because it's just tastier. It just really is. All right, so we've got chicken for chicken salad. We're going to put it over here with our chicken salad ingredients and come back in a little bit. We've got our bones for our stock. To remind myself what I'm doing next. Okay, we're going to switch over to prepping our vegetables. In fact, we're just going to dump all of this into our stock pot. Get it out of the way for now. Come back to it in just a little bit. All right, this was my cauliflower spatula earlier. All right, so let's talk about roasting vegetables. So in the concept of NextOvers, again, and if you flip to, maybe it's the last page. No, it's not the last page. Second page, okay. When I sat down to think about how to write a recipe for roasting vegetables, I was like, I don't even know. I don't ever follow a recipe for roasting vegetables. But there are some principles that can be useful. And they amount to don't overcrowd your pan and get a sense of what behaves well together and likes to be cooked together, right? Because if you've mixed a whole bunch of vegetables that don't cook at the same time and you've mixed them all up on the same pan, right, then you're just not going to have as satisfying of a roasted vegetable experience as if you put the like things together, or even if you just segregate them on the pan so that if you're looking at your pan and one thing gets done faster than another, you're good to go. So, all right, cauliflower. Who's ever seen or eat, I mean, I've seen them at the grocery store, but eaten purple cauliflower? The reason I bought the purple cauliflower, and you'll see earlier, I bought an orange one too, is because they were the same price as the white ones, but bigger this particular day. I was looking at the white ones and they were like puny little heads, and I was like, well, look, they're all the same price. So they breed them marketing. No, there are some differences too. There are some differences. So any of your vegetables that have these bright colors have flavonoids, which are cancer-fighting properties. You want to get as much different colors and varieties. I am also, as a dietitian, a total nerd for food things that come in different colors. Right? Like we are taught, eat the rainbow, all of those sorts of things. And that holds true here, right? The flavor is very subtle. They've probably, I don't know the plant breeding of what they did to get this here. But the vegetable farmers don't have quite the push behind them that the dairy farmers and the meat farmers have in the marketing department. So anyway, if it's the same price, it's going to get you a different variety of micronutrients, right? Which is great. So when we say, same thing with beans, with grains, with the more variety you can get in your diet, then the better it's going to be. So that's why I chose this for the cauliflower. Okay, so we're going to break down the cauliflower first. I think when I first started to learn to cut cauliflower, I just sort of went at it, however, or cut it in half to break it down. And then somebody taught me to flip it over and cut in a circle around the stem. So that's what I'm going to do. All right, as I said earlier, when you're saving your vegetable scraps, there are a couple of caveats to that. You could save these and put them in stock, but when it comes to cruciferous vegetables, they're going to overpower a vegetable stock or another stock. So if you're going to use that stock to make broccoli or cauliflower or asparagus soup, go for it. Can you roast these? Actually, yeah, we could roast some of these. They roast up just like other greens, so let's do that today. So yeah, I'm just going in a circle around this core, right? And then you see it sort of so much easier, right? So then you can now break down these pieces into a size that works for you. If you don't feel like doing a lot of chopping, don't break them down as much. If you're cooking for my children who only eat vegetables that are very crispy, then you break them down a lot. So we'll go for a happy medium in here, but yeah. What's that?
How do you wash it?
Just under cold water. Rinse it. So when I was taking microbiology in college, I learned that there's a lot of different ways to disinfect things, and actually, I probably give it a little rub with my hand, right? Because there is such a thing as mechanical disinfection, and when you're washing your hands, the friction is removing bacteria just as much as the soap and the others. I won't say just as much. I will not say that rubbing your hands underwater with no soap is not the same as using soap. But it's an important step, right? The mechanical disinfection is a thing. So yes, rinse it, wash it, give it a little rub, you know, and that's all you need. And I did wash these earlier this morning, by the way. All right, so as I said earlier, big thing about roasting vegetables is, you know, not to overcrowd your pan, right? You want, the other thing that's nice if you want, and I love this with cauliflower, the more like flat surfaces that come in contact with that pan, the more browning you're gonna get, and that's tasty and delicious. Just throw those guys on there. All right, from here, it's just gonna be some olive oil. Now, could you get this really evenly distributed in a bowl? Yes. Do you then have to wash that bowl? Yes. I don't have time for that. Same thing, we're just gonna go up high with the salt. And then if you don't wanna get your hands messy, you can kinda do one of these numbers. I usually just get my hands in there and really get it tossed. The other thing about roasting vegetables is you want to, and there's some guides on there temperature-wise. I knew we were gonna be cooking a chicken today, so I also wanted things that were gonna tolerate a high temperature because I knew I had to keep everything in the oven at the same time. So there you go, that was it. Salt, I mean, you can put some pepper on it if you feel like it. I have one, olive oil, salt, and pepper, easy peasy. And in the oven, and I realized I might have to turn this chicken a little bit in the other direction. Hello, oh, also, this oven really likes to just steam at me. All right, so we're gonna get you in there. Great. All right, let's get tidied up. Some people also like to roast vegetables under their chicken, which is a great thing to do as well. You'll need to, there's the tomatoes right there. You'll need to start the chicken earlier than you start the vegetables so that they all come out and behave nicely. So it sort of comes down to like, figure out how long your oven takes to cook a chicken, because I can tell you about, but this oven already has blown my mind with how much faster it's going than I expected it to go. So yeah, let's see, these I did not wash because they came a little bit later, so we're gonna rinse these guys off. All right, so tomatoes I chose in particular because the great thing about tomatoes is that if you're roasting, if they're a little like not quite in season and they're not, I mean, if you've got beautiful, fresh, in-season tomatoes, then eat them, right? But if you've got sort of like shoulder season tomatoes, roasting them is a really great way to turn up the sweetness. Now, could you sit and cut all of these in half? Yes, sometimes I do, and then they're gonna get real caramelized. Do I have time for that today? No, I do not. So we're just gonna do that and call it done.
Can I ask you, like, you just rinse the tomatoes and put it there? Do we need to buy the water, extra water? Or
This is a high enough temperature in here that it's gonna steam off real fast. If I was, like with the chicken, I definitely want that skin to be real dry and get it crispy. With these, as soon as they start busting, they've got a bunch of water in there. So I don't really worry about it with these. It doesn't make enough difference. So again, we're just gonna drizzle with some olive oil, a little bit of salt. One thing you could do with the tomatoes that I just remembered is a little balsamic vinegar, because that'll caramelize and get sweet and yummy. So we'll splash a little bit of that on there. Same thing. You can use your hands or not use your hands. Again, if you like cut them in half and line them all up in a perfect little row, sometimes I do that. Sometimes it's satisfying to me. But that's it, right? We're going to throw them in the oven, come back later. All right, finally kale. Okay, so kale, the way we're going to do it today is a little different. So if you guys ever had kale chips before, where you roast the kale until it becomes completely crispy, that is a great thing to do. We love that. That's not what we're going to do today because in my experience, kale chips do not make the best NextOvers. They just are great when they're fresh, and they're not so great later. The other thing about the kale is the thing I said about spreading it out. That's when you want like a nice crisp vegetable. For here, we actually want a combination. This works for other leafy greens as well. Cabbage for sure, where you've got some crispy edges and some like soft, tender bits. So we are gonna crowd this pan, right? And basically do the same thing, right? Olive oil, salt, and pepper. I am for this gonna add a little extra liquid to it because this is a high hot oven. So you can buy bagged up kale that's already chopped up. For this, it does have a lot of woody stems, and for this, I don't love the woody stems. I don't mind the stems so much if I'm like braising the kale, because then they'll get really tender, but in this preparation, they don't get so tender. Can you save the kale stems and do something with them? For sure. Again, usually if I'm braising, I just chop them up and use them then. I've known people that have pickled them. I've never pickled them. My mom once gave me a contraption that was this plastic leaf-looking thing that had these holes in it that was for stripping kale. And I have a pet peeve against kitchen tools that I call unitaskers that are only useful for one thing. But my mom loved to get me weird little kitchen gadgets so that I would end up with things in my, I had a whole drawer in my kitchen of the weird things I rarely used that my mom gave me. Right. So my little kale leaf was in there for a while. I think I did finally give it away at some point. Because, I mean, this tool is working just fine for this application. So yeah, there we go. Hello, kale, all in there, bunched up together. Again, got a little bit more olive oil in this guy. We're going to give you some olive oil. I'm going to give you a little bit more than that. We're going to give you some salt. And we're going to get in there and toss it up. All right, so I said first rule of roasting vegetables, don't overcrowd the pan. Next rule of roasting vegetables, guideline. I don't like to be dogmatic about things. Ooh, excuse me. Guideline is at some point in there, typically about halfway through, you want to get in there and stir things up. So in just a little bit, we'll get into this and stir things up. All right, so all the pieces on top are going to get more crispy. All the other ones underneath there are going to get more soft and tender. And we like all of those in a leftover kale application. I think I checked all these pans. We might have a little overlap in the oven. We're crowding the oven big time today, but it's going to be all right. Water. We added just a little bit of water. And I would say a couple tablespoons. To the kale. All right, let's see what kind of real estate we got going on in here and what's going on with everybody. Everybody's looking pretty good in there. Oh, is this going to close that way? Adventures in Cooking Demo. wonder if this pan's gonna close. You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna change pans.
I did Thanksgiving at my house this year, and I hosted it a couple days before. I did all my hand arranging and times and got the racks where it needed to be. The last thing I wanted to do is it was 375. I had to move everything out.
Right.
Smart cleaning ahead. I would have never thought about that.
Did you have a spreadsheet, Lauren? You seem like the type of person that had a Thanksgiving spreadsheet. Okay. I see you. I see you. All right. So let's get going to make sure that we get our chicken stock moving. Okay, so chicken stock is crazy easy, you guys. I'm going to do it in a pressure cooker today. Earlier we have the rotisserie chicken carcass, and literally, y'all, it's insanely easy. You can be precious about it, and I just don't think you need to be precious about it. I was telling someone earlier that back in September I was cooking for my mom who was in ovarian cancer treatment, and I had my 4 nieces with me trying to figure out how to cook but also get them involved. And they are, at the time, were 3, 6, 8, and 11. And so I literally handed the 3-year-old the celery and was like, how many pieces can you break this into, right? And just, I mean, if you break it into this many pieces or this many pieces, it doesn't matter. Whatever, it doesn't matter, right? Same thing with the carrots, go for it, right? You can chop them or not chop them, right? You can just, you got your scraps from your freezer in there, great, right? For the carrots, yes, not bothering. I mean, I scrubbed them all earlier. Same thing with, what's that? Not really. I mean, okay, so you can even ask Chef Mike about this. He talks about how some of the chefs, I don't know if it was in culinary school or when he was working in hotels, talked about even celery leaves. And I'm here to tell you, like, maybe if you did a side-by-side comparison of it being perfect, but here we want to make sure that perfection is not the enemy of getting it done. So, no. Even the onions, we're going to leave the skins on. We're just going boom on all of it. I'm using parsley for the chicken salad. We're chucking it all in there. I've got some garlic. I would do about a head of garlic. Again, I'm just going to, these put together, about a head. I'm going to cut through them this way so that we're exposing. Chucking it all in there. Bay leaves. I happen to see fresh bay leaves. You guys ever used fresh bay leaves before? They're great when you can find them. And, you know, who's going to use that many bay leaves while they're still fresh? Not many people. They're great in your freezer. Just chuck them. If you've got fresh ones, whatever ones you don't use them in the freezer. Pull them right out of the freezer to put them in whatever. I will say, these are not, I mean, I'll pass that around if you guys want to smell it. Say that again? These are bay leaves, not curry leaves. Good question. Kaffir lime leaves I've also had and put in the freezer. So I will say, like, typically if you've got older bay leaves, a recipe calls for 1, I'll put 3 or 4 in there. If you've got fresh ones, it is possible to overdo it on the bay with fresh ones. We planted a tree that RIP, I think it's dead, has been living for years in this courtyard 10 years or so, and I think the Christmas freeze this year did it in. So you can buy bay trees and keep them in a pot. Unfortunately, every 10 years we might get enough of a freeze that it's not going to make it outside, so you have to kind of baby it and bring it inside. Thyme, again, I'm not going to do anything, but just take some and chuck it in there. And then the other thing that I really like to put in chicken stock, and this is totally optional, but I'm going to do it today, is ginger. Super, just adds a different flavor dynamic, lots of anti-inflammatory properties in ginger. I'm not going to do this whole thing. I'm probably just going to do half of it. And again, I'm just going to give it enough of a cut to expose some of it. Boom. And then I'm going to not even measure the water. It's got a guideline on there about how much water. I'm going to fill it up. Did I have extra? Another rotisserie chicken I pulled earlier, so we're gonna go big. Use all that we have, and then fill it up with water and get it going. It's bones. I mean, yeah, it's bones from the other rotisserie chicken I pulled earlier. So I really am just gonna fill this up enough that everything's covered. The other thing I often do with chicken stock is not salt it. I have to pull this out to get it under the cabinet. There we go. How many of you guys have ever used a pressure cooker or an Instant Pot? Okay. They're awesome. I was talking earlier, I started using a pressure cooker when I was in grad school to cook dry beans and various things before Instant Pots were invented, but I'm a big fan of a pressure cooker. I'm going to pressure cook this. We're going to check it in 30 minutes and just see where we're at. 40 minutes is what I would normally do. If you're doing it on the stovetop, 2-3 hours is a great guideline. Oh, and this is a very fancy Instant Pot, so it took me a while to learn how to change the. Right. I know many people that have them. Oh, I said I was going to do 30. Sure, they have you hear so many stories about pressure cookers blowing up. Oh. So, oh my goodness. So was this in an Instant Pot or an old school pressure cooker? The older ones do not have the safety features. So the modern ones it is very hard to open it unless the pressure is down.
Let me ask you one question. Somehow I cannot do slow cooker in that. I think I'm missing something.
No, I think it's an Instant Pot flaw because I have the same problem with mine. The slow cooker function just does not work well on mine. I think they advertise it as being that, and it just doesn't deliver. That's my personal opinion about Instant Pot slow cooker, is I've never had success with mine either. And I've heard lots of other people say the same. Yes, I definitely use it for cooking rice a lot as well. Oh, thanks. Is rice? Yeah. I think next demo I'm going to be talking about beans, and I'll talk a lot about pressure cooker and beans, because that was really my intro to pressure cooking. And the first time I had a chickpea out of a pressure cooker versus a can, I was like, I'm gonna bring a can, and I'm gonna show you guys how tasty it can be. All right, so let's peek in here and see what's going on in here with everybody in here. One thing about purple cauliflower is a little bit harder to see when it's brown, and we're going to give this a stir. I would say I like my cauliflower to be fairly roasty. These little bits have turned into almost like kale chip kind of things, which is kind of fun. I'm going to go ahead and take these leaves off, but I'm going to let everybody else go a little longer. But you can kind of see See where I cut that one in half and it's like nice and browned? Can the camera see that? All right, we're going to give these just a few more minutes. But they're pretty good. See how fast this oven cooks? Whew. All right, same thing with the kale. We're going to turn it over because now you can see the top part's gotten browned. So we're going to give all those a turn. No, it's the top ones that were browned. So now I'm turning them to the bottom. Whoop. Just put that anywhere. All right, tomatoes, how are you friends doing? Looking good. Again, we're just gonna, ooh yeah, and that balsamic vinegar is starting to get thicker and more viscous. And we're starting to see a little browning on some of these. If you really want to get them caramelized till they're almost like sun-dried tomato-y, that's where cutting them in half. And even with that, I would go on a slower and lower oven for a longer amount of time. But it's going to get it done for today's purposes. All right, let's put some of this cauliflower leaves. Later. All right. All that's in the oven. All that's going on over there. I'm going to rinse off this cutting board. And let's make some chicken salad. Okay, so the very last page is your choose your own adventure, fill in the blank chicken salad recipe. Because as you're learning to cook, right, your confidence in the kitchen sometimes comes from having somebody to tell you exactly what to do, and that's great and fine. But sometimes if you're trying to cook with what you have on hand, and that doesn't align with the recipe that you're following, right? The more that you cook, the more you have confidence to cook with what you have and figure out how to put it together. So I love making these sorts of guides because it really just sort of makes the point that we can make it work, right? With a lot of different options if you're sort of thinking about the elements of a recipe more than the exact items. So, chicken. If you've got rotisserie chicken, great. If you're starting out with chicken that you want to turn into raw chicken that you want to turn into chicken salad, poaching it is going to be the best option. So gently cooking it in a little bit of water until you get it to that 165 on a low simmer is the best way. You guys ever been to the chicken salad chick restaurant before? So she, I don't think, maybe they're in Atlanta. There might be some in Atlanta. There's none near where I live. So she tested all these different methods of roasting and this and that, and they poached their chicken. That's the one that does the best for her. So that's great. That's not to say that this other method using rotisserie chicken isn't also great. All right, so for today, I'm going to work from the bottom so that I have my dressing in my bowl already. This, you can build it in a separate bowl. You can go vinaigrette. You can go to bind it all together. You could make a creamy vinaigrette with tahini, which I've got some instructions there. Today, I'm going to use a combination of mayonnaise and Greek yogurt. And the reason I'm using both, you could just use all mayonnaise if you want, but I do really like the Greek yogurt because it just introduces a probiotic element, which is, we can all use some more probiotics in our lives, and our gut microbiome is real happy when we do that. So you could also use all Greek yogurt, but what happens with yogurt in the refrigerator when you've spooned into it is it starts to separate. And so by adding the mayonnaise to it, mayonnaise, of course, is an emulsification of oil and vinegar using egg yolks to keep it all together. So by using a little mayonnaise with the Greek yogurt, you're going to keep that liquid from the yogurt in a better emulsification so that it doesn't, and it just sticks to everything a little bit better. So that's why I like to use both. All right, so I have all those things in the refrigerator waiting. Oh, I also cooked off some orange cauliflower earlier. I might toss that back in the oven just to get it heated up again. Just wanted to make sure we all had something to eat before the end here. I wasn't sure how long this oven was going to take. All right, so there's Greek yogurt, mayonnaise. And again, you can use full fat, non-fat, low fat, whatever works for the goals that you are trying to work with in your diet. All right, before I get too far into this, I want to make sure that we don't forget these guys in here. So we're going to pull that out. That is a good question. The one thing I would be careful about, I mean, it probably still is going to be. The one thing you want to be careful about is it's not a great idea to put hot vegetables or hot chicken or hot anything in your refrigerator because it warms up your refrigerator more than you want. Oh, thank you. Oh, did it not turn on? Oh, good grief. Mine goes. They are all. Thank you. Sure. So yeah, I mean, usually the vegetables that I put in chicken salad are raw anyway. Although I will say in a healthcare setting, we have cooked some of our vegetables for our chicken salad so that we can give them to dysphagia patients that have swallowing difficulties. So yeah, I would just make sure that when you put whatever, if you use warm vegetables or hot vegetables or whatever, I would just make sure that everything is cooled down to a certain degree before you put hot stuff in your refrigerator. That would be my advice. Sure. Yeah, I mean, you can cook with yogurt. I will say, like, probably just some warm vegetables or hot vegetables are not going to completely, like, if you raise the temperature too much on this yogurt, then you're going to kill all of the good bugs that are in there that we want. So you also want to be careful about that as well. You're going to, the yogurt's still going to be nourishing, but it's going to negate some of that probiotic value. So that's another thing to be thoughtful about. All right, so for today, we've got our chicken. For our crunchy vegetable, we are going to use celery. So I'm just going to get going. Oh, first we're going to do our vinaigrette. So we have a lot of chicken. I was planning for 20 or so people, so I'm not going to do all the chicken I was going to do. So we're going to go about along with this recipe instead of doubling it, which is what I was thinking. So I'm going to go probably half a cup or so of yogurt, and then quarter of a cup or so of mayonnaise. Is this open? Yes, it is. Boom. And then a tablespoon or 2 of mustard. Yeah. Vinegar, whatever vinegar you like is great. Sherry vinegar happens to be my favorite vinegar because I just really like the way it tastes. So that's what we're going to use today. We're going to sherry vinegar. It's just a personal favorite. It has sort of almost like a, it's going to sound weird to say, almost like a toasty, woody sort of note to it. And then we're just going to whisk all this together. Yeah, so in the bottom of this section, it says, I mean, again, you could use all mayonnaise. You could use a dairy-free yogurt, or tahini also makes a great creamy dressing without the dairy. So that would be another direction I would go. And then we're just going to go down the line. So we've got our chicken that I'm just going to, you know, you can pull it up more, but I'm just going to roughly chop it. And then that's the thing about chicken salad too, is that it's literally just put it all in the pot. Also, my thing that's holding this around. Oh, also, I'm going to wash my hands one more time. I was going to wear gloves for this part. You know what's super fun? Putting on gloves in front of a group of people with wet hands. It's so awkward. Does anybody know any jokes while I... We're getting there. We're getting there.
Actually, I have a real question. What's the difference between kitchen or like stock and broth?
Good question. Stock in general is using more bones to get there, and broth uses more meat, I think. That's a Chef Mike question. He probably learned that in culinary school. All right, we're gonna pull this kale out now. I'm gonna put this in here just to get it warmed up. It's already roasted. We just wanna get a little warmth on it. These guys, yummy and roasty. We love that. I'm gonna let all that hang out for just a minute. I'm gonna throw a thermometer on this chicken real fast. Wow. This one cooked faster than the last one. It's well over 165. So we're gonna let it hang out. We'll put some foil on it and let it hang out with our other friend over there. And we'll cut those up for lunch in just a little bit. One experiment that's also good in your kitchen, it's hot, is to periodically, if you're having trouble with your oven cooking the way you expect it to, is to get an oven thermometer and just test it, right? See if a thermometer in your oven is the same as what you think it's supposed to be. And then you at least know, I don't know of any way that you can change what your oven is, but then you at least know, right? Like, oh, we're a little under, oh, we're a little over. because my oven at home cooks slow for sure. Piece got a little big there. So if you guys have leftover chicken around, what other things do you like to make with it? Paninis, nice. Yeah, that's awesome. What's that? Tacos, yes. I mean, or anything other in that whole culinary tradition. Enchiladas or quesadillas or chili, yes. I've even done more like a pasta sauce, like a ragu with mushrooms and tomatoes that uses chicken. I love being able to find those things in my freezer that I paid it forward on. It's like finding money in your pocket at the end of the season, right? When you've paid it forward a little bit. Oop, there's a bone. Oh, one thing that I realized I forgot to do that I often put in my chicken stock is a little splash of vinegar. And the reason that I do that is because that acid in the vinegar, you could also use lemon juice or any vinegar, citrus juice. The reason I do that is that it helps to break down some of the minerals in the bones, making those minerals more available for you to consume. And also it helps break down, you know, some of the other proteins, the cartilage and connective tissue, and it creates this like nice, more viscous mouthfeel. And when my mom was in cancer treatment last year, she really struggled with thin liquid, just even water was hard for her to swallow, and something that had a little viscosity to it. Even some varieties of tea, she found that Constant Comment tea had enough viscosity to it. And so, yeah, she would just sip on the chicken broth because it was easier for her to drink than water. And we want everybody to stay hydrated, so whatever works for you. All right. Is there anything still in this oven? It smells like there is. Ah, yes. It's the cauliflower I was reheating. I was like, what do we forget in here? We'll put all of that together. All right, so now we've got our dressing under there. We're just gonna add in the rest of our vegetables. So again, with our choose your own adventure, we're gonna stay relatively classic today. See how much faster that was when your hands are dry? Oh my goodness. All right, so crunchy vegetable. Today we're going real classic with celery. I like to first cut my celery into a more usable length. Also, if you really like how much you cut your vegetables down is another part of the adventure that you get to choose. I'm in the habit of cutting most vegetables that I'm trying to put in something else into teeny, teeny, tiny bits because I have a very particular 5-year-old and 10-year-old in my house that I'm always trying to hide things from. Who think that they don't like things like onions and carrots and whatnot. So that's just what my habit is in. If you don't feel like you want to cut it down that teeny tiny, or if you like more of a big celery crunchy bite in there, you do you. All right, so celery, scallions. Again, I just think chicken salad is nice with some onion in it. It doesn't take a whole lot. If you're using a regular onion, you know, having raw onion in something can be off-putting for some folks. So if you're using a regular onion, you can, again, soak it in some vinegar or lemon juice, and that's going to take that like really strong sulfurous bite out of it. Scallions to me don't have as strong of a flavor raw, so I like them. Do you guys struggle with regular onions making your eyes water? For those of you who struggle with that, what are all the things you've tried? You just don't use it.
I just suffer.
So you don't want to know another unitasker that my mom gave me is onion goggles. They're like glasses with a foam thing around them. Yeah, they are ridiculous looking. Kind of, yeah. My kids wear them because my daughter doesn't like it if I'm cutting onions and she's helping me. You know, the thing that I found that makes the biggest difference is how sharp your knife is. That, more than anything else, it makes all the difference. All right, today I'm going to use an apple for the sweet element. Grapes, you know, are real classic. Dried fruit works great too. Raisins, dried cherries, chopped up apricots. Whoop, stay there. When I was thinking about this, I was thinking about the first time I was reading about some folks who would put like kale or collards or like sturdier greens in their chicken salad, which I was like, that could be cool. And I thought about doing that today. I decided to stay a little bit more classic. But the first time I ever had a collard green salad, I think I just read a recipe. It was like collard greens with apples and walnuts. And I remember reading the recipe so many times because you didn't cook. It didn't say salad. It just said collard greens with whatever. And it was the first time I'd seen collard greens not cooked before. And I was like, what is this? But with a real vinegary dressing, sturdy greens make a great salad. By sturdy, I mean things like kale and collards and chard and that sort of thing. All right, we're going to do a little bit of parsley in here. I think that this really just sort of makes it nice and bright and fresh. Any other fresh green herbs you have, this is, you know, great way to use them all up.
Can you save some of that to the side for a dairy-free one?
Save some of...
Make a separate chicken salad dairy-free.
Yeah, I have some other chicken. Yes, so yeah, we have enough elements of everything we can do that way, for sure. Pecans. I'm from Georgia, so pecans are my favorite nut. I believe that pecans are the superior nut. Walnuts are lovely here as well. Pecans are just so much sweeter. I mean, I'm a dietitian. There's not a nut I love all the nuts. I love how good they are for you. I'm kind of the nerd about food that when I know something is good for you, sometimes it even tastes better. I haven't come around on beets yet. Beets are so good for you, and I just can't make them not taste like dirt. Chef Mike's been trying for years to get me to like beets, because he's like, you'll like them when I make them. Sure. The only way I've found that I like them is that where they don't taste as much like dirt is when they're pickled. That can really make a difference. All right, so we got chickens done. What I was thinking today, now once you've got your chicken salad made, the other thing I didn't talk about, I love putting some curry powder or some other spices or seasonings into chicken salad. I love a curried chicken salad. This is annoying me. This bowl is too small. You can see it all, but I can't get the job done. So today I made some more dishes for myself, and that's okay. Because I need to like get in there. There we go. All right, so at this point, if you're like, oh, my chicken salad looks a little dry, I want it to have more of whatever on it, you can adjust. It's very forgiving. I liked to get the elements of the dressing mixed in. I'm getting wild here, y'all. Going crazy with all this new space I have. I like to be able to get the dressing mixed in the bottom of the bowl first. But at this point, I haven't put any salt and pepper in it, but let's just see, because this is from the rotisserie chicken. I'm just going to taste it and see. Silverware is down here somewhere. I'm learning. All right, let's see if I can get a bite with everything. Or if you're looking at it and you're like, this is not the right ratio of whatever. I want it to have more green in it, or I want some of every element in every bite. All right, let's see. Good start, but this is the whole thing about a choose your own adventure, right? Is that you're gonna figure it out as you go. It definitely needs salt, because we didn't put any in there, so we're gonna do that. Some fresh ground pepper, and the other thing that so many times, if food is just sort of tasting a little flat, the first place I always go is an acidic ingredient. So citrus, lemon juice, vinegar of some sort. So that's where we're gonna go here. Should have grabbed 2 forks. I was so confident that I was only gonna have to taste it once. That's hubris right there. I'm gonna be vulnerable with you guys. Thank you, Lauren. All right, did that get us where we needed to go? I won't take offense that you brought 2.
Making it worth my while.
I'm still thinking. Yeah, you know, I think it actually just needs a little bit more yogurt for the tang and to sort of like bring it together. So we're gonna stir a little bit more yogurt in it. And maybe a little bit more salt. Oh, the yogurt I put behind me. Thank you. All right, cool. So we will start plating things up. Absolutely. Certainly, if you're not using mayonnaise or something like that and you're just making a vinaigrette, then you'd want to use some sort of oil for the vinaigrette. Yeah, totally. All right, there we go. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. So, what I was thinking today is that we could serve, I got these very adorable little heads of lettuce, so I was going to plate up some of the chicken salad onto some lettuce cups. And we also need to cut these chickens up. I can start doing that too. If you would take some chicken salad, scoop it into these little guys. Yeah, and that can be the serving pieces. Oh, these. I know. He doesn't get fancy? All right, I will. Oh, there's more under the sink. All right, chicken salad goes there. Get all these guys out of the way. And then we're going to check on that chicken stock in just a little bit. So we'll have a little sip of that. It's still preheating. Rude. I tested it earlier to see how long it would take, and of course I only had water in there, so it got real quick. All right, let me get this. Roast chicken cut into pieces. Might not even need to cut it into pieces. Let's see. Might just be able to pull it. Do we have people that are more dark meat people and more light meat people?
I like dark meat.
Dark meat. I'm with you. We have enough for everybody to have whatever.
When I make chicken salad, I always use white meat.
Mm-hmm.
If you use red meat, it is okay too?
Yes, for sure. I think if I was just like cooking, if I was just going to start without a whole chicken, I would probably just use the breast meat too and poach it. But yeah, it's not a problem to use either. There. Isn't it weird if you walk into a restaurant and there's no music in the restaurant? It's very strange to me. I will say, again, I'm not always great at planning ahead, but one of the chickens you guys are eating, I don't know what, no, probably that one, yeah, I salted last night. And that, if you can remember to plan ahead, does make a difference. It does. Yeah, I spatchcocked it and salted it last night.
Thank you for joining Cancer Support Community Atlanta for this program. If you're interested in other live or recorded programs, please visit the online program tab of our website, cscatlanta.org. Or follow us on Facebook. We'll be sharing additional information on upcoming programs.